The world's oceans have an average salinity of 3.5%, which means that a liter of seawater contains approximately 35 grams of salt. This is not a uniform amount, however, as the level of salinity varies from place to place. For instance, where fresh water enters the ocean through the onrushing flow from river mouths, the salinity level is much less. In contrast, some areas, such as the North Sea, have higher salinity levels. In the case of the North Sea, the flowing of the Gulf Stream current is mostly responsible for its higher salinity level. Other places may be saltier if they get lower amounts of precipitation and a smaller influx of fresh river water. The average salinity of the oceans is lower in the polar regions and at the equator, but higher at the mid-level latitudes. The main source of ocean salinity is the inflow of fresh water containing mineral ions from land rocks. Water in the form of precipitation has an acidic quality that erodes rocks. This characteristic comes mainly from carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. When rocks erode, they release mineral ions that eventually make their way to the oceans in the form of runoff. While some of the ions are absorbed by marine life forms, over time, many are not absorbed, thereby increasing the ocean's salinity. The two most common mineral ions in the oceans are chloride and sodium, which comprise approximately 85% of the salt content in ocean water. Other mineral ions in ocean water include smaller amounts of magnesium, sulfur, calcium, and potassium. The theory of rock erosion creating the ocean's salinity was first proposed by English scientist Edmund Halley in 1715, in a process he termed continental weathering. However, Halley was only partially correct as modern scientists further theorized that some ocean salinity originated in the ocean floors. This comes from hydrothermal vents at the bottoms of the oceans. As magma under the ocean floors heats up, it puts pressure on the floors and creates cracks. These cracks allow mineral ions to seep into the water, which further enhances its salinity. In addition, when the cracks become very large, undersea volcanoes begin to form. As these underwater volcanoes become bigger over time, they release plenty of mineral ions into the surrounding water, thereby contributing to the salinity of the water. There is another theory claiming that when the oceans formed billions of years ago, a great amount of sodium was leached from the ocean floors, and that contributed to the water's salt content. All of this buildup of salinity occurred over millions of years. The oceans did not become oversaturated with mineral ions due to the delicate balance of the hydrological cycle. And while the ongoing process of evaporation creates a greater percentage of salinity, the influx of fresh water from flowing rivers and precipitation counters this increase. Many marine lifeforms evolved during this process, so they adapted to living in salt water by forming the ability completely to eliminate salt from their bodies. Unfortunately, humans lack this capability. The kidneys are responsible for removing salt in humans' bodies, but they cannot cope with high amounts of it. Even the low level of salinity in seawater makes it unfit for human consumption. While consuming a small amount of seawater will not cause any detrimental effects, drinking large amounts will result in internal injuries and, eventually, death. Too much salt in the blood will cause renal failure because the kidneys become overworked and shut down, leading to death unless fresh water is consumed to flush out the salt in the system. Despite being unfit for human consumption, it is possible to purify ocean water by desalinizing it. This is usually done through a distillation process, during which seawater is heated to a certain temperature. This allows the water to evaporate and become a gas that is later condensed to form fresh liquid water. Since 97% of all the water on the Earth is found in the planet's oceans, it is no surprise that people are working to come up with multiple ways to remove the salt from water to provide water for crops and for people to consume.